Jake found himself thrust into the body of a spoiled rich kid. He had just woken up when his wife demanded a divorce. Her true love had returned, and she was pushing Jake out of the picture. As someone who had just arrived in this world, Jake didn't really care. But he had to admit the original Boda's wife was stunningly beautiful. Just as he was feeling a pang of regret about losing her, the divorce papers she tossed his way made him ecstatic. Because the agreement stated that after the divorce, the cars, the house and all the money would be his. As a former ordinary worker, securing such wealth was nearly impossible. This was a windfall he couldn't pass up. He agreed without a second thought. In the original story, the rival never got over the heroine. He repeatedly caused trouble, eventually kidnapping her to threaten the male lead. He ended up being blown to pieces. Remembering this, Jake clutched his bank card and looked at the balance on his phone. He let out a long sigh of relief. There were plenty of fish in the sea. With money he wouldn't have trouble finding someone. Just then, his phone rang. The caller ID said wife Chloe Lu. Was she having second thoughts? He had barely warmed the money in his hands. Hesitating, he answered the call. A cool, composed voice came through calling him Jake, telling him to come get all his things. Her sister would be unhappy seeing them. He almost said just throw them away. The words were on the tip of his tongue, but he reconsidered. It was all free stuff after all. Chloe might have been cold, but she had expensive taste. The things she bought for him were quite valuable. He cleared his throat and said fine. He'd be right over. Worried she might change her mind, he hung up and headed out immediately. Arriving at the mansion, he was surprised to find Chloe was actually there. She wore a sleek black dress of fine material. She was barefoot, her toes painted a soft pink, her calves had a smooth straight line. She lounged casually on the sofa, her gaze deep. Her makeup was flawless, and she exuded a lazy elegance. This version of Chloe was devastatingly beautiful and regal. In the story, Jake's grandfather had once saved Chloe's father. That was the only reason they had married. Otherwise, a small family like Jake's would never have been connected to someone like Chloe Lu. Jake shook his head. Time to just pack up his things. He went up to the second floor bedroom. Pushing the door open, the room felt cold and empty. The closet was full of designer clothes for every season. Some even still had their tags attached. Jackpot, he set the new clothes aside separately, planning to sell them later for a good price. The other everyday items he could wear himself, saving a fortune on a new wardrobe. The drawers held over a dozen watches, diamond cufflinks, and various other accessories. While he didn't know much about them, the logos alone screamed expensive. He packed all the clothes and accessories, filling 8 large boxes. About to leave, he felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. Almost without thinking, he sat on the edge of the bed. On a strange impulse, he bent down and pulled a cardboard box from underneath. Inside, he found a journal and a photo album. The first entry was dated January 1st. I finally met Chloe Lu today. Father says she's my fiancée. I didn't expect her to be so beautiful. I think I'm falling for her. January 5th, the Lu family looks down on me. Chloe had a talk with me. She said we're just a marriage on paper. My heart ached, but I agreed anyway. Just being able to see her is enough. March 11th, we got married. Chloe picked the date, saying it coincided with the company's 10th anniversary, so we'd combine the events. I had no objection. March 12th, Chloe came to me. She gave me an agreement. It stated that I had to leave when that person returned. I didn't want to sign, but faced with her gaze, I gave in. These were all Jake's original records of every little detail about him and Chloe. After reading it, Jake felt a sour taste in his mouth. What was this? It was the textbook definition of a pathetic gold digger, a placeholder. Chloe wore a cold face every day, yet the original Jake stayed with her for 3 years. Now that the real love was back, he was expected to vanish. He probably died from the bitterness, which was when Jake woke up in his body. Jake shook his head, put the journal back, and took another look at the photo album. Opening it, he was stunned. It was filled with pictures of Chloe, sitting, standing, scolding someone, even sleeping. Every photo was of her. This guy Jake was truly obsessed. Jake had thought it was just jealousy or obsession, but this was love to the bone. Notes filled the margins of the album, detailing Chloe's preferences, down to the smallest detail. But then again, Chloe was stunningly beautiful and incredibly wealthy. Who wouldn't be drawn to that? Still, a man needed to know his limits. It was time to quit while he was ahead. He finished packing everything, and called for a moving truck. Heading downstairs, he saw a Rolls-Royce pull up outside. A man stepped out of the car. He was about 6 feet tall, with a pale, clean face, and wore a pair of glasses. His build was slender. He looked somewhat melancholic, and a bit pale. His features bore some resemblance to Jake's, though Jake looked much healthier and more vibrant. Jake offered a tight smile, politely stating that he and Chloe took care of each other. That's what marriage is about. The man's face visibly darkened. Jake smirked inwardly. He and Chloe hadn't even filed the final divorce papers yet, and this guy was already showing up at the house. As Jake was about to speak, he heard Chloe's surprised gasp behind him. A rush of air passed as she brushed past him and headed straight for Ethan Fu. Right in front of Jake, she threw herself into Ethan's arms. She then turned to look at Jake, demanding to know why he was still there. Her gaze was icy and sharp. Jake couldn't help but scoff. Chloe was in a real hurry. If not for herself, she should at least think of the company. If anyone saw or photographed this, Mr. Fu would look like the other man. After all, their divorce wasn't finalized. Chloe's face turned ugly with displeasure. Beside her, Ethan Fu frowned, his eyes clouded with a dark chill. Jake wasn't afraid. He met their gazes heated. Chloe looked thoroughly annoyed, but Jake was no pathetic doormat, especially after seeing them embrace right in front of him. Even the most passive person wouldn't tolerate that. Before Chloe could speak, Ethan took her arm and said Jake had it all wrong. He and Chloe hadn't seen each other in 3 years. He was just picking her up to catch up with some old friends. There would be several friends there. If Jake Jake wanted, he could join them. The friends of the main characters naturally moved in elite circles. It's pointless to force your way into a crowd you don't belong in. No thanks, I'm busy, but let me give you a piece of advice. Jake pointed at Ethan. Men and women should maintain some boundaries. Your social circle is complicated. You should be careful. Then he looked straight at Chloe. She should understand what he meant. She took a step back, putting some distance between herself and Ethan. Ethan's face instantly darkened. He stared at Jake, his eyes glinting with frost. Jake snorted coldly, and headed for his moving truck, driving straight to his own villa. This was a villa Chloe had put in his name. Combined with all the clothes and accessories, his future life wouldn't be difficult at all. He took all the new clothes to a consignment store, selling them for 80 cents on the dollar. He netted $300,000. He didn't keep any of the remaining accessories either. His bank account balance swelled once again. Getting this much from a divorce meant he could basically retire, but he still had a job to finish. The original Jake worked at the Liu family company. Now that they were divorced, should he stay or should he quit? Better not quit, let her fire him. He could get a nice severance package that way. Since he had crossed into this world, suffering wasn't an option. His only goal now was to make money. But the male lead's plot armor was stronger than he thought. Overnight, social media exploded. Chloe called him first thing in the morning, screaming, "Jake, did you do this on purpose?" Jake was confused for a moment before asking what she meant. "You did that on purpose yesterday, didn't you? If I find out you hired someone to do this, you know what will happen." Before he could respond, she hung up. Jake was completely baffled. Then he checked his phone notifications, and finally understood. Someone had photographed him moving out. The photos also clearly showed Chloe and Ethan Fu. Some paparazzo had gotten incredibly clear shots. The headlines screamed about the beautiful CEO divorcing, and her first love being the other man. Chloe was the most favored successor in the Liu family. Her marriage to Jake was just a formality. Not many outside their circle knew, but everyone within it was aware. For the paparazzi to expose it, somebody must have tipped them off. Now Ethan Fu was the target of public criticism, and Jake was caught in the crossfire. He thought about it and decided to call Chloe, but her line was constantly busy. He had no choice but to send her a text. He didn't want any more complications. Chloe didn't reply. Instead, the narrative online began to shift. Posts claimed Ethan and Chloe were first loves, and the campus's golden couple. The other man was actually the third wheel. One commenter said her aunt was a maid for the Lius, and that Jake had blackmailed Chloe into marriage, forcing her to marry him. That's why there wasn't even a wedding ceremony. Ethan left 3 years ago because he had no choice. He was in a car accident and couldn't make it back. Right, Ethan would never be a homewrecker. It turns out he was the one who was set up. Jake is disgusting. Did Chloe finally manage to shake off this scumbag? She's finally free after all her suffering. Ethan was being praised as a devoted lover, while Jake was painted as the villain, who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. Occasionally a comment tried to defend him, but it was quickly drowned out by hateful remarks until the account was deleted. Jake was furious. This was a classic case of the pot calling the kettle black. If he was so devoted, what was he doing 3 years ago? A car accident doesn't mean you can't make a phone call. Now he's pretending to be. Chloe hadn't responded to him. Jake clenched his fists. If this wasn't resolved, he wasn't going through with the divorce. Before he could seek out Chloe, the Gu family showed up at his door first. He was just about to eat when someone started pounding on his door. Who could be causing trouble at a time like this? He opened the door to find a middle-aged couple glaring at him with rage. His heart skipped a beat. A deep-seated unease stirred within him. Jake, you really have some nerve. How dare you move out on your own? Where is Ms. Liu? What are you standing around for? Your mother and I have been searching everywhere for you, and here you are already eating. So these were Jake's parents. In the original story, the Gu parents only saw their son as a tool. If they had shown him more care, the original Jake might not have grown so resentful, and ultimately met a tragic end. But now Jake was in charge, and he wouldn't let them have their way. He sat back down at the table, and continued his meal. The woman slammed her hand on the table. How can you just sit there and eat? Well, what else should I do? If you have something to say, say it. If you came here just to yell at me, don't bother. I don't want to hear it. As soon as he finished, she exploded. Let me tell you, Jake, you caused this mess. If you don't go and apologize, you'll regret it. That's right, son. The Liu family has cut off our supply chain. You know, your brother's little company relies entirely on the Lius. With this scandal, we have no face left to show anyone. They were talking in tandem, and Jake felt a profound disappointment. So according to them, their whole world was falling apart, and only he could fix it. I didn't start this. Chloe Liu is the one who wants the divorce. So stop digging for information. She's not changing her mind. Finish eating and then leave. Soon even this house won't be safe. Hearing this, they were both stunned. Then their anger flared again. Jake, we have the original marriage contract from the wedding. If the Liu family wants a divorce, well, release the contract to the public. Let's see how she divorces you then. A marriage contract? Jake raised an eyebrow. So such a thing existed. Have you seen the comments online? Ethan Fu went from being the other man to a devoted lover. What good do you think a contract will do? If you release that contract, I guarantee, not just me, but all of us could vanish from this world overnight. You have no idea. My advice is to keep your heads down and lay low. This wasn't an empty threat. The Liu family's power in this city was far beyond what their small family could match. Hearing this, his parents seemed genuinely frightened. They glanced at Jake again, then silently lowered their heads to eat. For a while the living room was quiet. After the meal, Jake saw them out. He looked back at the villa, and an idea formed in his mind. He couldn't keep this house